Peace. How y'all doing out there tonight? I'm here to talk about affidavit and declaration. I know a lot of brothers who are out there now. They're in struggles with the various agents and agencies to stay liberated or gain liberation or protect themselves and their loved ones. And I know a lot of times we file paperwork and we'll get the so-called court, quote-unquote court, and the agent masquerading as the judge will oftentimes take the position of the prosecutor and try to argue or refute you, or they'll try to act like they don't know what you're talking about, or they'll try to act like they don't know what you're saying when you're presenting your paperwork or you're presenting your evidence against them and you're challenging jurisdiction, right? And you have to realize that when we're dealing with this paperwork, we're taught not to file motions, follow affidavit. The affidavit is a written record. This is according to Black's Law Dictionary. An affidavit is a written record, written or printed declaration of statement or statement of facts made voluntarily and confirmed by the oath or affirmation of the party making it, taking before an officer having authority to administer such oaths. You have an affidavit is a declaration under oath made without notice to the adverse party. That's the Code of Civil Procedure, Cali, subsection 2003, Code Civil Procedure, that subsection 464. Affidavit is an oath in writing, sworn before and attested by him who hath authority to administer the same. An affidavit is always taken ex parte, and in this respect, it is distinguished from a deposition, a matter of which is elicited by questions and which affords an opportunity for cross-examination. An affidavit of defense is an affidavit stating that the defendant has a good defense to the plaintiff's action on the merits of the case. An affidavit of merits, one setting forth that the defendant has a meritorious defense, substantial and not technical, and stating the facts constituting the same. An affidavit of service is an affidavit intended to certify the service of a written notice or other document. Then there's an affidavit of bail, which is an affidavit made to procure the arrest of the defendant in a civil action. So now, I said we're going to talk about affidavit, and then we're going to talk about declaration. Declaration and pleading. The first of the pleadings on the part of the plaintiff in the action at law, being a formal and methodical specification of the facts and circumstances constituting his cause of action. It commonly comprises several sections or divisions called counts, and its formal parts following each other in this order: title, venue, commencement, cause of action, counts, conclusion. The declaration at common law answers to the libel in ecclesiastical and admiralty law, the bill in equity, the petition in civil law, the complaint in code pleading, and the count in real actions. U.S. v. Ambrose 108, U.S. 336, 2 Supreme Court 682, 27L, edition 746. Buckingham v. Murray, 7 Hughes Delaware, whatever. It's a lot of cases to look into. I'm gonna look into these cases. And get back to you. In evidence, a declaration is an unsworn statement or a narration of facts made by a party to the transaction by one who has an interest in the existence of the facts recounted. or a similar statement made by a person since deceased, which is admissible in evidence in some cases, contrary to the general rule, e.g. a dying declaration. In practice, the declaration or declaratory party of a judgment, decree, or order is that part which gives the decision or opinion of the court on the questions of law in the case. Thus, in an action raising a question as to the construction of a will, the judge or order declares that according to the true construction of the will, the plaintiff has become entitled to the residue of the testator's estate or the like. In Scotch practice, the statement of a criminal or prisoner taken before a magistrate. A declaration of independence. Now this is why I started looking at the term affidavit and declaration, because once I'm searching what the word affidavit means, I come across, declaration and written, yada yada yada. So while I'm looking up declaration, I came across the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence is a formal declaration or announcement promulgated July 4, 1776 by the Congress of the United States of America in the name and on behalf of the people of the colonies, asserting and proclaiming their independence of the British crown, vindicating their pretensions to political autonomy and announcing themselves to the world as a free and independent nation. There's a declaration of intention, a declaration made by an alien as a preliminary to naturalization before a court of record to the effect that it is bona fide his intention to become a citizen of the United States and renounce forever all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, whereof at the same time he may be a citizen or subject. And they tell you U.S., I don't even know what that is, Rev, ST, I don't know what that site means. They're talking about the Declaration of Powers, the Declaration of Rights, see, Bill of Rights. Declaration of Trust, the act by which a person who holds the legal title to a property or an estate acknowledges and declares that he holds the same in trust to the use of another person or for certain specified purposes. The name is also used to designate the deed or other writing embodying such a declaration. There's a declaration of war, dying declaration. Declarator of trust, an action resorted to against a trustee who holds property upon titles ex facie for his own benefits. Declaratory, explanatory, designed to fix or elucidate what before was uncertain or doubtful. Declaratory action, right? In action, in Scotch law, an action in which the right of the pursuer or plaintiff is craved to be declared, but nothing claimed to be done by the defendant. Otherwise called an action of declaratory. In affidavit, you're dealing with, you need somebody to come in and say, oh, this is basically permissible. An affidavit requires somebody who has the authority to administer such an oath. If we're declaring ourselves to be liberated and independent, there is no one with an authority to state that we can do this, or that, for us to take it. So we have to make declarations, which is what? Affirming. And then we could have anyone, who's seen us affirm sign as a witness. So anyone who is present may sign as a witness, and they don't necessarily have to be a so-called officer in order to validate our paperwork. So when you're filing this paperwork, you're giving a declaration more so than you're giving an affidavit. You're declaring something. You're asserting your rights via declaration. That's why they called it the Declaration of Independence. And as they also have in here, a Declaration of Rights is also the Bill of Rights. So if I'm declaring my rights, I'm serving them with a bill. You're serving the courts with a bill of your rights. This is what you owe me. You're the declarer in your situation. You affirm. You don't have to create an affidavit because you don't need anybody to validate what you're saying. Your declaration is what? Self-evident, as written in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident. That all men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power, from the consent of the governed. Not the concession, not the ignorance, but from the consent, meaning, consent from the word sentir, to feel with. We feel consensual. It's consensual. It has to be a consensual thing. If you're saying y'all violate my rights, I'm not feeling what y'all doing. I don't want to be a part of this madness that you call United States government anymore. I don't want to be a part of what y'all calling Canadian government anymore. I don't want to be under British rule anymore. I no longer consent to your way of life. I no longer consent to what society has determined is valid or invalid. I no longer can feel the same as you feel. And most of what we do that they say that we consented to is just a result of you lacking in the knowledge to be able to object when it happens. You don't know that you necessarily have a right to object. And your right to object starts as soon as you come in contact with a police or an agent. Whether they send you a paperwork or somebody sends you a bill in the mail and say, you owe us this, you have to pay us this. Like, you have a right to challenge. Whenever somebody says you owe them something, you have a right to challenge it. I don't care what it is, a ticket, a debt, a child support, whatever it is. You have a right to contest what they're saying is valid against you. No, they have to be able to stand on that. At law, in principle, they have to be able to stand on that. Somebody has to attach their honor to what was sent to you. And we'll get into that on another note when we'll talk about honor, and then we'll talk about the whole concept of limited liability. We've been taken to believe that liability is something that's dealing with debts, but liability is bigger than just a debt, as in the monetary aspect. They got assets, liabilities, the accounting. Accounting is a, oh man, it's all involved. All of this stuff is connected. They teach us to compartmentalize these things so that we never make the connection. But the reality is, when you get into it, an account is not just counting 1, 2, 3, 4. Adding up, subtracting, balancing the equation and balance sheets and capital expenditures. Is more to it than that. See, to account means to what? Relate, to tell a story. That's why when you're going to court, you're dealing with a hearing, right? They say everybody's entitled to a fair hearing. So when you go and when you're dealing with a hearing, you're dealing with, I'll get into that another time, man, but the word hearing and the word audit are the same words, remember that. But now getting back to it, an affidavit, like I said, deals with you going before somebody who has the authority to administer the oath to you. The declaration is basically you declaring what it is and what it is, what it will be. That's you operating from your capacity of liberation and independence. Don't let them start trying to confuse you with these words. A lot of brothers are using affidavits to trying to get their points across. But as you read in declaration, right? A declaration is a formal and methodical specification of the facts and circumstances constituted for the They would call this a petition in civil law, and it's a complaint in criminal in the code part. I mean, they call it the criminal code, but yeah, here they have it written code pleading, but the complaint. So now somebody issues a complaint against you, they're making a declaration against you. They're not issuing an affidavit against you necessarily. They're making the declaration, but they're writing it. They're calling it affidavit because they're saying that an affidavit is a written declaration or statement of facts made before one who has the authority to administer. And so when you're dealing with an affidavit, you got to discuss those things: title, venue, commencement, cause of action, counts, conclusion. So study these words and recognize the nuance and the differences of what these words actually mean. Though one word may be used to define what another word means, those two words aren't necessarily synonymous. Because if they were the same word, then it would be redundant for both words to exist. So there's always a subtle difference in there, and that subtle difference could mean a whole world of difference. So when you're filing your claims and you're making your assertions and you're proclaiming your rights, as they did in the Declaration of Independence, right? A formal declaration or announcement, right, made to declare political autonomy. They didn't make an affidavit of independence, because to make an affidavit, somebody would have had to have authority over them to be able to do that. They made the Declaration of Independence. So remember that. So when you write in your paperwork, make those declarations, right? Declaration of nationality. Proclaim your nationality. Proclaim and declare your rights.